One of the things that really pisses me off about this Haason Reddick situation is that we want to pick and choose when we want to not only degrade players and tell us what they ain't good at. We want to praise guys for having elite skill and only being good at that particular skill. Haason Reddick is one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. No one can deny the numbers said. You see it in his play. But one of the aspects of the game that he struggles with, and the reason why Philadelphia, the Cardinals, all these guys went out of their way to not give him that, is because he has these deficiencies. But instead of actually saying it and acknowledging it, we want to continue to praise guys for doing one thing well. We want to give these guys $20 million for having one elite skill, praising him and saying, yep, the guy can get me he can get me 10 sacks. He can get me 15 sacks. But what about if I need him to stop the run? What if I need him to be physical? Is Haason Reddick the type of defensive player and defensive edge guy that you're going to pay $20-30 million to make a critical stop in a critical run situation? Absolutely not. But instead of actually admitting these things, we got guys on ESPN that go out of their way to say, yeah, the guy has X amount of sacks. So he shouldn't have to practice because he's an elite pass rusher. But what about these situations when you need Haason Reddick to stop the run and get physical? Do we want to acknowledge these things, or we just want to focus on what the only thing he does well is get after the quarterback? We're just going to focus on all the good things and not focus on anything that he does bad. Because the fact of the matter is, Haason Reddick is not a good run defender. He's not a great run defender. We've seen this time and time again. This is why he has to be on the Jets team. This is why he has to be on the Philadelphia Eagles team. There were situations in game where teams went directly at him. When they wanted to run the ball, when they wanted to get physical, they seeked him out. So instead of actually acknowledging these things, ESPN, the swagoos and all that, you don't want to focus on. You only want to focus on the positive things. Why? Because we like him. And the guys that you don't like, you want to focus solely on the things that they have not done or they can't do. We've seen this for years under a guy like Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is one of the most prolific quarterbacks to ever grace the game. And yes, I did make a Matt Ryan reference because this is exactly what we're talking about. We only focus on the people and the players that we like. Haason Reddick is a damn good pass rusher. He's a good edge rusher. But there are aspects of his games that he lacks. And this is why teams like Philadelphia don't want to pay him $20 million a year. They don't want to do it. This is why the Jets don't want to pay him $25 million a year. It's because there's aspects of his game that aren't elite. And it can become a problem in the playoffs. We've seen this happen. I've seen it happen when he played against the Atlanta Falcons. I've seen it when he played against the Dallas Cowboys. I've seen it in a lot of games. So instead of trying to dismiss the fact that Haason Reddick this is what I say about Haason Reddick, and he has to understand this. Yes, you are an elite edge rusher. You can get after the quarterback. And oftentimes, teams like the Jets, like the Steelers, like the Eagles, they're going to see these things. And they're going to want to bring you along to help the team in its entirety become a much better team, a much well-rounded team. But you cannot, as a player, ignore the fact that these are the things that you do not do well. You are not a great run defender. Stop pretending as if you are. Because you're not. And then you're wondering why teams don't want to pay you this money. It's because of this. You're not an elite defender. You're not an elite defender. You're an elite pass rusher. You have an elite skill. You're not an elite player. Those are two different things. And a lot of players like the Brandon Ayuks, the Haason Reddicks, who are elite at a particular skill, they want elite money for the position, and they're not an elite defender, or they're not elite in that particular position. And this is oftentimes why a lot of players like the Antonio Browns, the Le'Veon Bells, all of these guys, this is why they find themselves out of the league, is because they have convinced themselves and their agents have convinced them that they are elite players. You have an elite skill, but you're not an elite player. And until players and until fans and until these analysts understand the difference, this is always going to be a problem. It's always going to be a problem. You have an elite skill. You're not an elite player. Those are two different things. If you are, no one will say Grady Jarrett is not a great run defender. No one will say Grady Jarrett is not an elite pass rusher. Grady Jarrett is one of the most well-rounded defensive linemen in the league. No one would say Chris Jones isn't a good pass rusher and run defender. He does this. This is what he does. Aaron Donald did it for years. Good against the run, good against the pass. And when you look at guys like Haason Reddick, who does exactly that, get after the pass rusher. But if you look at his run defense and look at his effort in the run defense, now you would say to yourself, why would I give this guy $20-30 million? He's not giving me the same effort in the run defense. Because in big game situations, when you need that one stop and you need him to do one thing well, how are you confident within yourself to say, Haason Reddick, I think you're an elite defensive player. I'm going to give you $20 million, not only to be a good pass rusher, but I want you to come in and be able to stop the run when I need you to be able to make a big play against the run. I'm not confident he can do that. And again, this is the difference between elite skill and elite player. And until NFL players understand these things, until fans understand these things, there will always be a disconnect between the team itself, the front office, and players. This is why Haason Reddick is having so many problems getting that contract extension. He has an elite skill, but he's not an elite player. And those types of players, you can only pay them X amount of dollars. It's just the way it is. And then the game has always been like this. But when you have money involved, you have these agents involved, that's the disconnect. So, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, would I like to have Haason Reddick on my team? I would. Because every team would need to improve their pass rush. But one thing I always say to myself, if I can get 3 guys to get me 15 sacks, or I can have 2 guys to get me 15 sacks, and I can pay those guys, what, $7 million a piece? Or would I have one guy and I'll pay him $20 to $25 million? Where do you think I'm going? I'm going with the first option. I'd rather have 2 guys I can pay $8 million to than pay $25 million for a guy that's going to give me 15. That's just the business in me. If I can save money and get the same production, give me the save option. And this is why, again, there is a disconnect with business, and there's a disconnect between the front office and the players and a lot of these analysts and a lot of these fans. Is because from a business standpoint, an organization standpoint, why in the bloody hell am I going to give you $25 million for 15 sacks and I can get 15 sacks for $15 million? Make that make sense. So, do these organizations not appreciate certain guys? I don't think that's the case. Now, there are cases where, organizations do disrespect and disregard players and what they've done for the organization. We've seen that. But as a businessman, especially with a guy like Haason Reddick, that we all know that he's not an elite defensive lineman. We know he's not good against the run and the pass. He's a great pass rusher. But we know this about him. Give me the 2 guys for $15 million that can get me 15 sacks rather than have a guy that can get me 15 sacks and I'm giving him $20 million. I'm saving money every time. So until players understand this and understand their worth, this is why, again, Brandon Ayuk, there's a disconnect even with him. He believes in his head that he's an elite wide receiver. But San Francisco is saying to themselves, like, no, we believe you have an elite skill that can help us win, but I'm not willing to give you $30 million. You're not Julio. You're not Jerry Rice. We've seen what Jerry Rice can do. You're not Jerry Rice. You're not Christian McCaffrey. So why would I give you that? And this is what being real and being honest with yourself as a player, and we're understanding, like, yeah, I know I could. And if I cry and I bitch and I complain, I could possibly get it elsewhere. But you got to be real with yourself. You got to be real with yourself and the players. And this is where I say the players are mixing things, because they're not being real with themselves. They're not being real with themselves. They believe that they're a whole lot better than what they actually are. So with that being said, this has been your boy, man, Mike, man. Straight heat for you. I got to continue to put these types of videos out. So if you guys enjoyed this particular breakdown, Brandon Ayuk, Haason Reddick, leave your comments, hit that subscribe button. I'm out here, man. Deuces.